Let's move on to the AFC South, starting with the Houston Texans. And without looking,
how hard could it be?
Did you?
Did I go everything?
Did you say everything again for the third straight year?
Well, look, they were quarterback because you got to start this thing somewhere, and you can't start it with Davis Mills. Is the bottom line for me. Good news is I think they're in position to go quarterback. Whether or not they have to trade up to do it, having took themselves out of that number one position for no reason. But they need a quarterback. I think you got to start this thing. Yes, they need everything, but you got to start with the quarterback.
If you're the Texans, so the latest rumor today.
Okay.
Our friend, PFF Bobby Slowick. The rumor is, I think per Burt Breer.
OC?
Which should be per us. Come on, Bobby, dude. Let me break this news.
Given the direct sources that we have for a couple of these jobs,
we're bad at breaking news.
We seem to have very poor breaking news
we are
ability
live
here
on the podcast. Can we break any news?
It does feel like because we've had this conversation before, right? There's a process here.
Bobby's been on the show. He's a part of our family here.
He's a PFF podcast alumni.
He is.
Yeah.
It's good to see our alumni maybe getting NFL jobs.
It is.
So
anyway, the point being here is there's talk that Bobby Slowick, former PFF Bobby, may be the Texans OC.
So that's the news.
Because he and D'Amico Ryans were QC coaches together back in the day.
They were over there grinding it out, till midnight.
Right.
Doing the dirty work.
Mm-hmm.
And now D'Amico's the head coach. Bobby Slowick might be getting the offensive coordinator job.
He was the pass game coordinator for the 49ers this year.
So my question was going to be, does that open the door for a Jimmy Garoppolo potentially? Could the Texans go that route rather than drafting, especially now that they're at 2 instead of 1?
You don't think Bobby, given the choice between Jimmy G and his busted up everything versus Bryce Young, is going to be like, give me Bryce Young?
I don't know. So the Niners were clearly ready to move on from Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think based solely on his injury history,
I think it was because of the injuries, right? I don't think because...
Which has only gotten worse since that point.
But again, you could easily look at this and say we have 0 quarterback with the Texans.
Yeah.
You know how coaches don't like the mystery box, right? Coaches don't always
Sometimes.
They don't always.
Sometimes they really like it, though.
But
give me this draft pick that could be anything. But it could even be the thing that I have already.
There's a reason why, the Andy Daltons of the world, there's a reason why there's the comfort level with what you know. There's a lot of coaches who don't like the mystery box. They like what they know. And I guess my point is there any chance that they would go Garoppolo, not draft a quarterback this year, and then also, worst case scenario, maybe they're in the mix for next year's class, for the Caleb Williams of the world, for the Drake Mays of the world?
I think at some point you got to start the project. And they've been kicking this thing down the road for years, waiting until they got rid of Deshaun Watson. They finally have draft capital now and money and apparently kind of a hot seat. Out of nowhere, Nick Casario's job was being talked about. And maybe that was entirely off-season rumors and, the kind of bullshit that swirls at the end of a season. But if that's if all of a sudden people are starting to get impatient, can you really sell everybody on, let's just kick it down the can one more year? Next year's draft class is really good. And then what if all those guys stink next year? And all of a sudden it wasn't as good as you thought it would be. And now you're like, oh, crap, now we just got to draft somebody. No. You pick number 2 overall. You should have picked number 1. You don't. Make it happen. Pick the quarterback. Take the guy you want. If the guy you want is going to go number 1, you're going to have to bite the bullet and trade and go make that happen. Just draft your quarterback and start. Start the project.
Most importantly, Bobby, text us if you get the job, and we'll report it as the PFF NFL podcast. We'll do it as a joint thing.
I do feel that if we're not the official podcast account should break it.
Yes,
I do feel
that'll grow the podcast account.
That those
and then Adam Schefter will have to say per the PFF NFL podcast. He'll have to say that. And if he doesn't, I will track him down over here on Media Row. I will go and intimidate him with my size and say, you need to tag us.
It feels like we earned that from those review meetings, where we were trying to work out what the hell is this coverage, hours worth of you, me, Bobby, Ben. We earned the right.
We
to
were
break
QCs with Bobby, just like
true.
him and D'Amico. We were QCs on a Tuesday night going through all the plays in the NFL.
You should tell Bobby to tell D'Amico that. Maybe we could get a job lower down, obviously. But
I'm going to be GM. The chat knows I'm trying to sabotage the Texans.
I'm just saying maybe we could jump in as a position coach somewhere.
Yeah, I could do that.
You know, as collective former QC coaches, you know, do you need a linebackers coach?
I just want to be a GM. That's all I want.
Okay.
We got this. All right, let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts, who also need a quarterback.
Yeah, they do. The veteran merry-go-round has not been kind to them. They fired everybody.
And they're going to draft.
They're treading water until they can plausibly hire Jeff Saturday as the coach.
They're definitely going to draft.
Coach Saturday again. So yeah, I think it feels like they got to draft one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to jump back into this veteran thing, right? Having Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, it's all gone south. The roster has declined around them. They're not going to go, I wonder what Derek Carr could do in this offense.
I'm going to pick my words wisely here, but I was going to say, can you go into this offseason process sober-minded and forget about the past, right? Can you go in, what? I didn't pick my true. I went with exactly what I was going to say.
You may have picked them carefully, but
it's the right word.
Yeah.
Can you go in and say, yeah, we went Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan. And just because those didn't work, Derek Carr's not going to work. You know, like Jimmy Garoppolo's not going to work, whoever it might be. Or do you say, forget it, I'm not doing that anymore?
I mean, if the roster was still as good looking as it had been during some of those decisions, you can maybe talk yourself into the idea of, look, the process is fine. We've just come up heads 3 times in a row, right? All we need is tails next time and we're good. But I don't think it is. Like, I think the roster's gotten worse, and I think they know that the roster's gotten worse. Like, they've talked about this already, that we sold Matt Ryan a bill of goods. The thing that he showed up to be in charge of is not the thing that we thought it would be. So at that point, it's a different decision. It's not, do we just add an average quarterback to a very good situation and cook? It is, can this guy actually raise the level of a roster that isn't as good as it used to be? Because that's what we need now.
I mean, I think you're going to go draft just because you want the first contract quarterback.
Yeah.
I think in Indianapolis, I think Jim Irsay wants the mystery box.
Well, also, the mystery box has been kind to him. Like, if you look, he's like, every time I pick at the top of the draft to get Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck.
That's just stop it.
I'm serious.
Yeah, I mean, you got to pick the times that Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck were at the top of the draft. Yes.
So if you're the billionaire going, well, how has the process been to me, right? Let's examine the evidence, right? The last 2 times I've drafted at the top of the draft, I've gotten Hall of Famer and, you know, potential Hall of Famer, but for injuries and all those kinds of things, who walked away early and left me in pain, in tears, right? And every time I've turned to the veteran market, I get some broken down has-been who can't do it.
Johannes in the chat, she always does a great job, you know, interacting with the chat here. I think she's going with Sam's goal of funniest outcome.
Okay.
Her suggestion is the Colts trade for Jameis Winston and draft Anthony Richardson.
I mean, that would be pretty funny.
Yeah, Jameis. I mean, imagine Jameis, what he's going to do to Jim Irsay and his sanity.
Yeah.
And then the biggest of mystery boxes with it, which is Anthony Richardson. Not saying he's not going to work out. It's just, you know.
So when you weren't here, and I was talking about this with Seth, I was asking him the question. I'll ask it to you as well. Are they seriously going to hire Jeff Saturday as the coach? Because they're running through this process. Sounds insane. They're going through a second round of interviews, some of which apparently are lasting 12 hours. What does a 12-hour interview with Jim Irsay look like?
Everything. He talked about everything.
Are they just like watching Manning tape, listening to Led Zeppelin? What is happening? And then apparently they might get
about culture.
They might get to a third round of interviews. Is this just like, how long do we have to play this out before we can just hire Jeff Saturday and say we were exhaustive in the search? Is that what's happening here?
I'll go back to my original take on all the interim coaches, whether it's Jeff Saturday, whether it's Steve Wilks. I don't think anything that happened in a half season has anything to do with what would happen going forward.
Okay, but let me pose it another way. In your words, can you come to the sober-minded conclusion after multiple 12-hour sessions with Jeff Saturday and other head coaching candidates that Jeff Saturday is the best candidate for the job?
He was just inexperienced this year, Sam. That's what's happening.
And you think that
maybe they're coaching him up. Hey, you know, you didn't you didn't really know how to do these couple things because you've never done it before. But we're gonna practice.
We're gonna practice not throwing away a 33-point lead at the half.
Yeah.
We'll run that one in the simulation.
Simulation. Maybe they're simulating game decisions or something.
We'll put that one in the VR set. Right?
That would actually be
We'll work that out.
Oh my gosh, we could reinvent coaching interviews.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens in a 12-hour coaching interview, but if you're going to take a prospect and you got 15 minutes with them and you're going to throw them up on the whiteboard and everybody.
Would you look at this bullshit in the chat? Steve must be 7'2". Is Munson a garden gnome? Why is he 2 feet lower? Look,
we don't have the adjustable chairs here.
I was out there yesterday.
Full disclosure, can we get some adjustable chairs here? My Sam's too short.
I was out there yesterday, and I'm standing next to Nakobe Dean, and I'm like the same size as him. That's an NFL linebacker. Okay, maybe he's got an inch on me and a little bit of poundage, but we're basically the same size. You are the problem here, not me.
Listen, can you stop being distracted? I'm about to change the game and coaching.
Okay, sorry. You're going to fix coaching. Coaching interviews.
If you're going to throw quarterbacks on the board, are they putting head coaches on the board? Are they throwing them with the VR headset? Be like, it's 3rd and 19, and you just picked it out. It's 4th and 2 on your own 37. What are you doing? Yeah, that's what I would do. Maybe that's what they're doing. They're going the virtual whipped up a little simulation.
Well, we got our guy Andrew Hawkins there with his VR football game. They need to add the coaching part to it. Yeah, and it's just
I would do.
Coach Saturday turns to his play card,
or even better, you play Madden. You're sitting there playing Madden, and it's like 4th and 1.
So what we're seeing here is 12 hours of Madden is what's happening.
Yes,
with Irsay, Irsay playing Madden.
I'm going to go get an interview
with the 04 Colts roster, right? Irsay's got the old depth chart set. He's got Peyton Manning as his quarterback. He's playing as the 04 Colts. He's setting up Jeff Saturday and the other coaching candidates with the 2023 Colts, and he's just waxing them, Just Irsay dropping bombs deep down the field.
Just do this,
to
Jeff.
Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne hanging 50 on them, and then every time they can't win, it's like, well, you're out.
This feels like its own video. Inside the Colts
hiring process. This is what Joey
Molinari,
we're writing a script for him. This is his next
video.
This
is what Joey would do. Yeah,
this is Joey's next video.
We'll have to talk to Joey here. What does a 12-hour interview look like? He's got to be around here somewhere.
I was going to say,
right?
is he in
talk to
Media Row?
I'll talk to his boss, Tannenbaum,
nice.
This week. We'll get him going. Well done. I'm going to go get an interview next year, so I can report back. Just to report back, because that's
get one with Jim Irsay. I want to see what that's like. 12 hours of Jim.
I will send him a resume right now.
You should.
I will send him a resume. I'll drop it off. It's only a couple hours away. All right, we're gonna get this stuff sorted out. Let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars though, because we have a hard out. Jaguars
for a hard lock.
Biggest need for the Jags. You went secondary.
Yeah, I think the secondary is moving in the right direction. I think they got some good play out of certain players. Tyson Campbell had a really good year. Darius Williams, when they moved him back outside, he's another one of these weird corners where he gets miscast a lot because of size. We're going to hear this a lot at draft time. Anybody that's 5'10", you're a slot only. You can't play outside. DJ Reed got this with the Seahawks and the Jets. You're a small corner. You can't play outside against these big behemoth wide receivers. But if they're just better at that, then let them play there. And Troy Hill is another one who I think is a better player outside than he is inside, but gets miscast that way. So when Darius Williams got moved back outside, I think they had a capable pair of starters. Now, I don't know if he stays there or not, but even if he does, you still need a good slot guy. You still need an upgrade, at least one safety spot, I think. I just think this team needs a cohesive secondary to go around the good players that they already have.
Their process was kind of similar to what we described with the Steelers. They had all these guys. I mean, Tyson Campbell was a developmental draft pick that just, had a good season.
Right.
But we've talked a lot about the volatile nature of cornerback, both in our grading, right? Like our grading can fluctuate when you're evaluating those players, but in just general coverage numbers, whether it's NGS, whether it's our tracking numbers, whatever it might be, it's a volatile position. So they brought in guys like Shaquille Griffin he's like the epitome of the volatile player, right? He's had some good years, he's had some not so good years. So just adding more depth there, right? I mean, he only played a few games last year for the Jags, but he was up and down.
And a lot of this, I think they actually have more acute needs at either of the levels of the defense, in front of the secondary. But I think they're less likely to address those because of young players.
They've
right?
drafted players there, right?
You know, they're not going to move on from Trayvon Walker after 1 year, right? They're not going to move on, presumably, from whatever combination of Devin Lloyd or Chad Muma is going to play at linebacker next year. They have invested in those guys. They're at least going to give them a chance to develop in years 2 and 3 and see what they can get. I think edge rusher is still a problem spot for them. They keep swinging, and to a certain extent, respect to them for keep doing that. But when you look at how many like first-round edge rushers they've drafted and the results from them so far, it's been bad. But I think those are bigger areas of need, but I just don't think they'll attack those.
The other ones that I would want to highlight, though, is wide receiver 1 for the Jags, and we'll see if they believe, if the combination of Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk is enough there. That could be.
The Ridley thing is a real X factor there.
Yeah. But when he's been the X, when he's been the number 1, it wasn't as good with the Falcons, right? Ridley's probably better as a 2. Zay and Christian Kirk also better as complementary pieces. And then specifically tight end, as far as they only have Luke Farrell essentially locked up for next year. It's year 3 of Trevor Lawrence now. Same thing. Like attack with playmakers. They're going to have to re-sign Jawan Taylor or find somebody at right tackle. So there's a few other specifics. I don't hate secondary as the thing. Mm-hmm. But I do think that the offensive playmakers are going to be that dictates if Trevor Lawrence is an MVP candidate next year, right? Like if they find an A.J. Brown, if they traded for T. Higgins, Trevor Lawrence might be locked in as a top 3 MVP candidate next season. So that's the play, I think, for the Jags. But we'll fix every team in 5 minutes later this offseason. We're not getting into all the solutions-ish yet. Let's round out the AFC South. How hard could it be? With the Tennessee Titans, where you went with offensive line as their biggest need.
Yeah, the Titans had the worst offensive line in the NFL this year. They ranked 32nd in the league. Their pass blocking was absolutely catastrophic. Their run blocking was bad. They only barely cleared the bottom of the league in terms of yards before contact per attempt. Right at the end, their offensive line was bad. Now, some of it, there were another one of these teams where they got beset by injuries or a huge amount, and that obviously didn't help, but it was bad before the injury struck, and then it got worse. So it's just an area they need to keep reinforcing.
Yeah, it feels like the Titans have almost been playing with fire the last couple of years, because we had described them as they're a run-first team with a run-first offensive line, right? When we talk about offensive lines, it's always in generalities, right? A quarterback's under pressure, it's like, well, their offensive line's bad. Or a running back can't run, their offensive line's bad. Well, they're two different skill sets. And the Titans had, for years, been a very good run-blocking offensive line, top 5-ish, but bottom 5 from a pass-blocking standpoint. Last year with potential friend of the show, Taylor Lewan, getting injured, they just saying he could.
Well, as of right now, Taylor Lewan is the guy that thinks we pay, or agents pay us for grades. That's not very friendly.
We might need to have him on the show to discuss.
Okay.
We'll see if we could do that.
Okay.
So enemy of the show to this point, Taylor Lewan. With him being banged up, a lot of things fell apart for that offensive line this year. Ben Jones playing through injuries, the famous Vrabel talking him through, playing through a game with the injury.
Lewan doesn't think he'll be back based off previous comments. So, like, left tackle's an issue. Right tackle, Nicholas Petit-Frere didn't play that well. Maybe he can develop into something
below
better.
Average as a rookie, but those guys, they tend to get better.
So it's a question mark, going forward. They just had issues really across that line. I think they need help really throughout almost all the positions.
Despite that, Aaron Brewer is a modern marvel.
Modern marvel?
Yeah. As a 270-pounder playing in the NFL. I've said this before on the show, but we have our height and weight and our apps and all that stuff, and I was like,
you outweigh him.
270. Yeah, I do. I can play guard.
I don't think you could.
Absolutely not.
No.
But I thought there was a typo. 270 pounds. What is this, 1985? When there was 300 pounders in the league and everybody was 270 on the offensive line. That's incredible that he's even able to block anybody.
Oh, I mean,
he's not a great player by any means, but he's a modern marvel.
But just consider any time a guy of that size has to block somebody like, Dexter Lawrence or whatever. That is an absolute bloodbath if that ever happens. Theoretically. You're genuinely talking about being outweighed by 60, 65 pounds. That's insane.
Yes. And it's kind of insane to watch because, he holds his own at 270 pounds. But I'm with you on the Titans, man. There's rumors. So we get the Aaron Rodgers rumors.
Yep.
And if that's the case, it's tough to look at the Titans and say, on paper, they're any better than the Packers or some of the other teams, the Jets, the other teams that could be in the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes, because they do have the offensive line questions. They just traded A.J. Brown last year and bring in Treylon Burks. You got Robert Woods. Like, it's a decent receiving core, but
well, it's a very it's an up in the air receiving core at the moment. Like, Robert Woods was not good last year, coming off that ACL injury. Now, are we expecting a big jump this year, another year removed from the injury, or is that the version of Robert Woods we're going to see outside of the Sean McVay offense and the Rams and everything that was cooking there when he was looking really good? Treylon Burks flashed a lot of potential, but we knew he was going to be a raw prospect coming into the league. Is he going to take a big leap forward? He was also banged up. Like, are injuries going to be a problem for him? There's not a lot of certainty there with that receiver group. It could be good next year if those two guys transform, Robert Woods back into what he was and Treylon Burks into what we think he could be. But if it doesn't get any better, it's a problem spot.